Hi, hello, vanakkam, and welcome back to yet another episode on Little Law YouTube channel. So, in the past few days, I have got a lot of comments asking for LoadRunner based interview questions. So, today we will see the question number one. So, the first question here is the interviewer might ask you that in a performance testing scenario for a web application, which load runner function would you utilize to verify the presence or absence of specific text or patterns in the server response or in the response? And he will ask you to write an example of a situation where this function proves valuable. So even though if you know the answer, please write an example to demonstrate how does it work, because it always gives the interviewer a better perspective on you, that you know the code or you know the answer very well and you are able to give an example. So I normally always do like that whenever the question is asked, and if I can give them an example or if I can write them an example, I will always show them. I always write them and show them an example, so that always gives the interviewer a good perspective on you, that you have a lot of hands-on using the functions. So before we move on to the answer, this is me, Yavasan Shanmugam. I welcome you all to Little Saw YouTube channel. If you have not subscribed to our channel yet, please subscribe to our channel. Comment your questions and feedback in the comment section. So now let me just give a quick look on the question and then we'll go to the answer. So the question is, the interviewer is asking you, which load runner function would you utilize to verify the presence or absence of specific text or patterns in the server response or in the response? So he asked you to give him an example. So the answer for this question here is, in a performance testing scenario and mainly for a web application, so the load runner function which we used to verify the presence or absence of specific text or pattern in the server responses web-reg find. So here we use the web-reg find. So this function allows the testers to define a text or pattern to search for in the server response and validate whether it exists or not. For instance, let's consider a situation where you are load testing an e-commerce website checkout process. So by using the web-reg find function, which we are discussing here, we use this function to check if the confirmation message, for example, if the message is order is successfully placed, which appears in the response after completing the checkout. So we can ensure that the key step of placing an order is functioning as expected. So if the message is missing, it might indicate issues with the transactions completion, helping us to identify the potential performance bottleneck or errors in the application. So we use the function which is web-reg find. And now we will see an example. So you have to tell. So after explaining him that how or why do we use, or what exactly is the web-reg find function, how do we use for this scenario. So after explaining it to him, you have to explain another thing, that is an example. So you have to tell him, you have to start in a way like, let's say I'm testing an online banking application's fund transfer feature. So as part of my load testing, I want to verify that a confirmation message appears after successfully transferring fund between two accounts. So I can achieve this using the web-reg find function. So here is how the load runner script might look like, and you have to write this example here, that is a web submit form which tells the transaction and it gives a snapshot, and you are giving a name, a value, and these values here. So the source account, the target account, and then the number or the amount, and finally you are writing the web reg find to verify the confirmation message. So you're writing the web reg find, and the text has to be transfer successful, because this is what you want to find in the response. And then you're writing a condition where save count is equal to transfer underscore success and then last. So by writing this function, so in this example, the web reg find function is used to search for the text. So the text here is transfer successful. So in the server response, after the fund transfer is initiated, so if the text is found, the function will save the number of occurrences in a parameter named transfer successful. So later in the script, I can use this parameter to make assertions or decisions based on whether the transfer was successful. So for instance, I might add code to check the value of the transfer success and log an error if it's not as expected. So this approach ensures that the fund transfer process is working as intended and helps identify any issues that might arise during load testing. So this is the first question. So I hope you understand the question and you answer this with a proper example with the proper function. So I would recommend you to go through all the functions before you go to the interview. So let's now move on to the second question. So the previous question was not a direct question, but you have to explain that with the proper answer and with the proper example. But here the second question is a direct question, so you have to explain more about these functions with examples, and you have to add maximum amount of points to the question, because since this is a very straight question, so you have to make sure that you impress the interviewer by answering with maximum amount of answers. So the question goes like this. So the interviewer is asking you, could you please explain the difference between the functions, the LR abort and LR exit in LoadRunner scripting? So we all have used the LR abort and LR exit in various situations, but when this question is asked, most of us get panicked and we struggle to answer the question. So you have to bring up all the answers in or all the situations you have used these functions, and you have to answer them. So I will give a brief explanation on this answer here, so please don't forget to watch the video before your interview. And he will ask you, how do these functions impact the behavior of the script, and under what circumstances would we use each of them? So once he asks the question, your answer should start with the first function, which is the LR abort. So you have to recollect at what are all the situations you have used LR abort. So you have to answer this way, that this function, this LR abort function, serves as a panic button. So this is the very primary difference between the LR abort and the LR exit. So this LR abort function serves as a panic button because it enables the immediate termination of all virtual user activity across the board, and it's comparable to an emergency stop, ensuring a sudden halt in cases of critical issues that could impact the test environment's stability. For instance, encountering a major system crash or a severe error that could compromise the infrastructure warrants the use of LR abort to swiftly bring all virtual users to a halt, which minimizes any other potential damage. And here, this is one of the examples I've used. So in case the response time has increased more than 10 seconds, so the LR output message should be the response time exceeded the threshold, or even you can write it as the response time has exceeded the SLA, and immediately you can stop. Immediately you can halt all the virtual users with an LR abort. And then coming back to the next example, which is the LR exit. So what is the difference between the LR abort and the LR exit? So now we are in the second part. So on the other hand, the LR exit allows for more surgical control over script termination, because the previous abort does not have control. It just panics. It is just a panic button. So once it gets panicked, it automatically stops the entire virtual users. It brings every user to come to a halt. But On the other hand, this LR exit will allow for more surgical control over script termination, because this function lets us exit the current iteration while allowing others to proceed. So think of it as a refined instrument that selectively stops a specific script sequence, leaving the broader test unaffected. So for example, in a data validation scenario, if a specific set of data fails verification, we can use LR exit to gracefully conclude that iteration and ensuring that the test results are accurate without affecting the overall load testing process. So here in this code I have written the same way. So if there are any error occurred, the LR output message will be an error occurred and I'm exiting the iteration. So next comes the LR exit, where I write the LR exit iteration and continue, and then LR fail. So this actually does what I expect. So if a specific set of data fails verification, I utilize the LR exit transaction or LR exit function to gracefully conclude that iteration. So here you can see I'm concluding that particular iteration, that is LR exit iteration, and continue LR fail, by ensuring accurate test results without affecting the overall load testing process. So this is the difference between the LR abort and the LR exit. So I again request you to watch this video before you go to your interview, because I have clearly explained about the LR abort and the LR exit. So we will see about more interview questions in our upcoming video. Until then, it's bye bye from Asan Shanmugam and Little's Law.